Have you ever wondered what life used to be like 3 million years ago? Where you're sitting could have been home to a giant sloth or a mastodon. I find myself asking questions like this a lot, such as, what's the origin of life? How did species get where they are today? And what did life used to be like? Well, I can't answer those questions in one research project, but I can narrow my search down to Idaho. Luckily for me, Idaho has a great resource, the Hagerman fossil beds. They're the best fossil beds in the country for the Pliocene epoch, which is 5.3 to 2.6 million years ago. So that's why I chose to ask the question, how did the Hagerman fossil beds contribute to our understanding of the Pliocene epoch? From my research, I was able to infer that Idaho was very different than it is today. In a quote from the Digital Atlas of Idaho, they said the environment was much different than the sagebrush landscape we see today and has been classified as savanna-like with higher annual rainfall. It also had a lake called Lake Idaho where many aquatic animals could be found, such as otters, frogs, aquatic birds, and fish, as well as animals that you won't see in North America today, such as camels, llamas, mastodons, and the famous Hagerman horse. So, first I'd like to show you how I did my research. Then I'll show you the evidence I found. After that, I'll tell you how it changed what we knew, as well as finally how it has proved that we have a lot left to learn about the history of life. Before the evidence, I'll show you how I identified the evidence. What worked best for me was a summary chart. I would first thoroughly read the article, then I would label the sections and find the information that went in the section so I could easily find it again. I would also highlight the sections so it could be easily found. There was a lot of information in each of the texts, so I would only write down what pertained to my research question. Now that you know how I did the research, I'll share with you the evidence I found, including a lot of aquatic animals, migration patterns, and proof of climate change. So we know that there was higher rainfall because of all the aquatic animals we found. A good example of that is the otter. Now, otters are different from other mustelids because they can swim very well, and you can see that in their bones, including this humerus that was found at the Hagerman fossil beds. In order for them to be very good at swimming and survive, they had to have a large body of water to swim in, such as Lake Idaho. Turtles were also found at the site. Turtles cannot be found in eastern Idaho today and are only found in the panhandle. So they had to have a lot more rainfall in order for them to live in eastern Idaho. In a quote from the National Park Service, one of the possible reasons for a wetter environment in Idaho 3.5 million years ago is that the Cascades were not as tall and were not as effective in stopping moisture from the Pacific Ocean from reaching inland Idaho. As the Cascades pushed upward, they became a more effective barrier, resulting in an increasingly more arid environment in Idaho. And here is a map to better show you where the Cascades are and how that would have happened. Next, we know migration patterns of species due to their discoveries at Hagerman fossil beds. So, it was originally thought that horses came over when humans brought them from Europe and that they had originated in Europe. But it was discovered that they were actually in North America 3 million years ago. That is the same for camels and llamas. And it has since been discovered that horses and camels would have migrated using the Bering Land Bridge and llamas would have migrated using the Panama Isthmus. So, this evidence has changed what we know about the Pliocene epoch. With the Hagerman fossil beds, we wouldn't have known that the horses had ever lived in North America, as well as camels and llamas. And it is usually assumed that what is here has always been here, until we discover otherwise. So what does this mean to you? It means that through discoveries, we have a better understanding of what migrated where. And Idaho was able to contribute a lot to paleontology and even change textbooks, which is really nice because people tend to mix us up with Iowa. But it also reaffirmed that we have a lot left to learn about life. And in conclusion, I went in asking what life was like in Idaho during the Pliocene and what evidence there was for that. And I got a clear picture of a savanna very different than the desert we see today, a place with turtles, camels, giant river otters, and much, much more. And what's amazing to me about this research is that 7 square miles of land could add so much knowledge about life in Idaho. And I want you to remember that somewhere out there, there's something amazing waiting to be discovered that will change all of our assumptions.